We begin with breaking news tonight. Police arrested a Centerline man accused of killing his wife. All right, this guy Chopper was over the scene as police went door to door looking for that suspect, with the neighborhood now on edge.
The suspect shot and killed his wife in their home behind me and then fled the scene. The director of public safety for Centerline PD told me that they were able to get a quick description of this suspect. With the help of Warren PD, they located him over a mile away.
Tonight, a Centerline man is charged in the fatal of his girlfriend with children home at the time. It's one of the latest cases of domestic ending in murder. It has advocates scrambling to save lives.
That suspect, 39-year-old Zachary Fuqua, was arraigned today, charged with second-degree murder and multiple charges. Local 4's J. Scott Smith was in court today as disturbing new information came to light. We begin with the man accused of down a mother of 4 in her own kitchen. He's facing charges. Thanks so much for joining us. First at 4, I'm Ty Steele in for Karen Drew this afternoon. Police say Zachary Fuqua and his girlfriend, Erica Marie Sanders, it happened Tuesday night in the kitchen of her home.
Seeing some of the notifications and people that sent to me where he been battling something for maybe a month, and it's led up into this. And he pretty much said something was going to happen this day. I wish I had an opportunity to talk to him before it led to this point. I just hope you get the correct help.
I just hope you get help. Seriously.
39-year-old Zachary Fuqua sat shackled inside a booth at the Macomb County Jail this morning, listening as Judge Suzanne Fonts read off a laundry list of charges against him. Fuqua was formally charged with second-degree murder today in connection with the brutal killing of his girlfriend, 38-year-old Erica Sanders. Fuqua also faces 5 separate charges. The happened around 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday at their home on Sterling Street near Van Dyke in Centerline. Police arrived at the home to find Sanders face down, having been shot in the back of the head in front of her children. According to investigators, Fuqua fled the scene on foot before he was arrested by Centerline and Warren police at the corner of 10 Mile and Wainwright.
3 days before Erica Marie Sanders lost her life, the man who shared her home sat down at his phone and typed 4 words: "Going out with a bang." He posted it publicly for everyone to see, friends, family, anyone scrolling through their feed that Friday afternoon. It was March 14th. Erica was still alive. Her children were still in their home. The kitchen was still the kitchen. Nobody knew what those 4 words meant yet. That's the part that is almost impossible to sit with. That the announcement was made, that it was out there in writing, 3 full days before everything changed on Sterling Street. That the warning was visible and documented and accessible. And that a 38-year-old mother of 4 still did not make it to March 18th. Erica Sanders had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. The youngest was 5 years old on the afternoon of March 17th, when Centerline police responded to a call on the 7500 block of Sterling Street. Officers arrived to find Erica in her kitchen. They attempted life-saving measures. They fought to bring her back. She was pronounced dead at the scene. 3 of her children were home. Zachary Fuqua, Erica's boyfriend, her live-in partner, a man her niece once called her godfather, fled the home on foot after the incident.
As my godfather, how can you promise me that you're going to take care of my auntie and you take her away from me?
He was apprehended approximately a mile away at the corner of 10 Mile and Wainwright Street. When he was charged 3 days later, prosecutors revealed something that makes this case even harder to understand. Fuqua had a prior conviction for carrying a concealed weapon. He was legally prohibited from owning or possessing a firearm. He had one anyway. 4 words. Posted publicly 3 days in advance, and tonight, Erica's children are growing up without their mother. This is the story of Erica Marie Sanders, a woman who deserved every day she was denied. A mother whose children watched something no child should ever witness. And a case that raises questions about warning signs, red flags, prohibited weapons, and why we keep arriving at the same tragedy and calling it a surprise. Stay with me. If this story matters to you, take 1 second right now and hit that subscribe button. Every subscriber tells the algorithm that stories like Erica's deserve to be heard. Subscribe. Stay with this channel.
Now to a murder in Centerline. A mother of 4 shot and killed allegedly at the hands of her live-in boyfriend.
We're told the boyfriend tried to get away but was later arrested by police in Warren. Erica Sanders' family was in tears today, heartbroken for the children who will now have to grow up without their mom.
They told 7 News Detroit reporter Peter Maxwell about possible warning signs and about what they want to see happen to the suspect.
Zachary Fuqua, 39, of Centerline, Michigan, is currently being held without bond inside the Macomb County Jail. That bond denial was argued for and granted after a prosecutor stood before Judge Suzanne Fonts at the 37th District Court and made the case that Fuqua represents a clear danger to the community. The prosecutor's exact words, "Such a person is a danger to the community and must be kept separate from the general community." Fuqua reportedly attempted to argue he was not a flight risk. The judge did not agree. Now let's talk about the charges, all 6 of them. Count 1, second-degree murder. The primary charge, carrying a maximum sentence of life in prison under Michigan law. Count 2, possession of a firearm by a prohibited person. Fuqua's prior conviction for carrying a concealed weapon stripped him of the legal right to own any firearm. He had one anyway. Count 3, possession of ammunition by a prohibited person. Michigan law treats the weapon and the ammunition as separate violations when the person is prohibited. 2 distinct charges. 2 distinct charges. 2 distinct failures. Counts 4, 5, and 6. 3 counts of felony firearm. 1 count for each child present in the home that afternoon. The law, in its own cold and clinical way, counted each of those children, a 5-year-old, a teenager, a child in between. 3 counts, 3 faces, 3 separate criminal exposures for the defendant. Macomb County Prosecutor Peter Lucido issued a statement following the arraignment. The allegations about this defendant's actions are abhorrent, and they have resulted in an immeasurable and devastating loss for the victim's children and family. Domestic violence can have tragic and far-reaching consequences. No one should have to live in fear within their own home. His office also noted that these are the maximum charges available under Michigan law based on the evidence presented, a signal that the prosecution came in at the ceiling. Court schedule. A probable cause conference was set for April 1st before Judge John K. Mura, followed by a preliminary examination on April 8th before Judge Fonts. These are the gateways to a potential trial. This channel will continue to follow every development. Drop 1 word in the comments right now. Whatever came to mind when you heard about those 3 counts of felony firearm, 1 for each child in that house. 1 word. This community shows up for victims like Erica. Before we go any further into courtrooms and charges, we need to stop. Because Erica Marie Sanders was a person before she was a case number. And the most important thing this channel can do is refuse to let a human being be reduced to a headline. Erica was 38 years old. A mother of 4, 2 boys and 2 girls who poured her entire soul into raising them inside a home on Sterling Street that was exactly that. A home, not just a structure. A place that felt like something because of the woman inside it. Her niece, Amia Price, spoke to reporters in the aftermath of March 17th. What she said was not prepared or polished. It was pure grief. She addressed the man who had been welcomed into their family circle. The man she had once trusted enough to call her godfather. She said, "You promised me you were going to take care of my auntie, and you take her away from me. Us. Her kids." There was so much in that sentence. The promise.
As my godfather, how can you promise me that you're going to take care of my auntie and you take her away from me?
The word godfather, implying a level of trust and family acceptance that goes beyond the ordinary. This was not a stranger. This was someone Erica's family had pulled into their inner circle. A family member named Adams also spoke publicly following the incident. He described watching warning signs build on Fuqua's social media for about a month before March 17th. He told reporters he wished Fuqua had come to him directly about whatever he was going through, that there were people who would have listened.
We hurt. You can't ever be prepared for nothing like this. You know what I'm saying? And we feel even more hurtful for our niece and our nephew. Seeing some of the notifications and people that sent to me where he been battling something for maybe a month and it's led up into this. And he pretty much said something was going to happen this day. And I wish I had an opportunity to talk to him before it led to this point.
That detail. A member of the victim's family expressing grief-stricken empathy toward the man accused of taking her speaks to the kind of community Erica was part of. Interconnected lives. People who shared holidays and made promises to each other. Erica was 38 in the heart of her life. Her children ranged from 5 to 17. The oldest was on the edge of adulthood. The youngest had barely begun to understand the world. She was their center. And it needs to be said plainly, Erica Sanders did not fail her children. She did not do anything wrong. She was in her own home, her own kitchen, the place she was most entitled to feel safe. Her name is Erica Marie Sanders. Say it. Remember it. Please share this video right now. Sharing means more people learn her name. More people are forced to sit with the reality that this is not a rare anomaly. It is a pattern. Do it for Erica. To understand what happened on Sterling Street, you need to understand where Sterling Street is. Centerline, Michigan is one of the most densely packed incorporated municipalities in the state. Approximately 1.4 square miles, surrounded entirely by the city of Warren. It is, in the most physical sense, an island. About 8,500 people living in less than 2 square miles. Close houses, close neighbors, the kind of community where people hear things, see things, and know things, and where the ripple of a tragedy moves fast. Centerline sits within Macomb County, historically defined by its blue-collar, manufacturing-adjacent workforce, a county that has absorbed decades of economic disruption as the industrial base that once anchored working-class stability contracted and, in some cases, disappeared. That economic context matters when we talk about domestic violence. Not as an excuse, there is no excuse, but as a framework. Research consistently shows that financial instability and reduced access to mental health resources create conditions in which dangerous situations are harder to escape and harder to interrupt. The 7 to 500 block of Sterling Street sits near Van Dyke Avenue, one of the main arteries cutting through Macomb County, a neighborhood of families, not abstractions. When police responded to that call on March 17th, they were responding to a community that knew Erica, a block where her children went to school, where neighbors probably said hello in passing with no idea what was happening behind her door. That invisibility is the defining feature of domestic violence. It builds in private. The warning signs accumulate in private. Centerline's residential closeness, the same proximity that makes it a community, could not penetrate the walls of Erica's home before it was too late. March 17, 2026, a Tuesday, 5:30 in the afternoon. The time of day when children come home from school, when kitchens get busy and the house fills back up with noise and motion. 3 of Erica's 4 children were home. Centerline Public Safety received a call from the 7500 block of Sterling Street. Officers arrived to find Erica in her kitchen. Director Paul Mizanski described what his officers encountered. They found her on the floor. They attempted life-saving techniques. They fought. It was not enough. Erica Marie Sanders was pronounced dead at the scene by ambulance personnel.
Our officers started life-saving work on her. They got the ambulance there, but unfortunately she was pronounced dead at the scene.
Prosecutors allege that Zachary Fuqua fired the weapon that ended her life. Prosecutor Jonathan Misek stated plainly in court what the prosecution intended to prove, that Fuqua had, in his exact words, no qualms about what he did, and that he did it in the presence of 3 children. After the incident, Fuqua fled on foot through the residential streets of Centerline and into neighboring Warren. He was apprehended at the intersection of 10 Mile Road and Wainwright Street, roughly a mile from where Erica's children had just witnessed something no child should ever see. He was taken into custody without further incident. The children ranged in age from 5 to 17. We do not know exactly what each child witnessed in those moments. What we know is that the oldest, at 17, was old enough to carry the full weight of that afternoon with adult comprehension, and the youngest was 5 years old on a Tuesday in March. On Friday, March 14th, 3 days before Sterling Street, Zachary Fuqua opened his Facebook and posted publicly, "Going out with a bang." 4 words, visible to anyone who followed him. And according to Erica's family, this was not the first sign. It was the latest one. Family member Adams told reporters that alarming behavior had been visible on social media for approximately a month before March 17th. That people had been sending notifications, that the trajectory of those weeks felt, looking back, like a countdown. He said he wished Fuqua had come to him directly, that people were available and willing to help. This is the gap that kills people. The space between a visible warning sign and any mechanism capable of acting on it is, in the context of American domestic infrastructure, enormous and frequently fatal. And the Erica Sanders case is a study in exactly that gap. What was known, Fuqua posted language publicly suggesting something devastating was coming. His behavior had been alarming for weeks. And, critically, he was a legally prohibited person, barred from possessing a firearm due to a prior weapons conviction. He had one anyway. Here is the question this case forces us to ask. At what point does a social media post constitute an actionable threat? A post saying, going out with a bang is, on its face, ambiguous. Courts and law enforcement are rightly cautious about acting on ambiguous statements. The threshold for intervention based on social media alone is, by design, high. But the Fuqua case is not just a social media question. It is a question about whether the systems designed to track prohibited persons and enforce weapons restrictions are actually functioning. Fuqua was prohibited from possessing firearms. That was the law. The law failed to keep a weapon out of his hands, and Erica Sanders paid for that failure with her life. Domestic advocate JoJo Drees responded publicly to this case. She runs an organization called On the Wings of Angels, which has helped 200 women and several hundred children escape dangerous situations. She said, "These tragedies don't just happen in a box or a bubble. This has been building. The survivor sees no way out, so they stay, and it escalates. 4 words on a Friday, a kitchen on a Tuesday, and in between, a gap that the current system did not close."
These don't just happen like in a box or in a bubble. This has been happening. This has been happening. The survivor sees no way out or no solutions outside of this, so they stay, and then it escalates into murder. So if you're a survivor and you're listening, know that there's help, know that people care. Pack a bag. It's little things, right? If you pack a bag, if you study what's out there, if you tell a friend. So this is a shameful conversation. People feel it's a shameful conversation. It's not. 1 in every 3 women, 1 in every 5 men have experienced domestic violence.
Fuqua is charged with second-degree murder. That phrase appears in every headline, but most coverage stops there, as though the charge explains itself. It does not. Michigan distinguishes between degrees of murder based on premeditation. First-degree murder requires proof of a deliberate advance plan. Second-degree murder requires intent to cause death or great bodily harm, but not a proven prior plan. The act must be intentional. The premeditation element is what separates the 2 charges at trial. The Macomb County Prosecutor's Office noted that these are the maximum charges available under the law based on the evidence presented. That phrasing is deliberate. It means prosecutors filed the most serious charges the current evidence supports. But here's what develops as this case moves forward. The Facebook post from March 14th, time stamped, dated, publicly documented, is exactly the kind of evidence a prosecution can use to argue premeditation. Going out with a bang, posted 3 days before, does not read as ambiguous in a courtroom the way it might to a casual observer. Defense attorneys will argue it could mean anything. Prosecutors will argue it means exactly what happened. That argument will likely become the central battle of this trial. The felony firearm charges carry mandatory minimums that most people don't realize exist. In Michigan, felony firearm possessing a weapon during the commission of a felony carries a 2-year mandatory minimum sentence served consecutively, not alongside the sentence. In addition to it, 3 counts means a minimum of 6 mandatory years stacked on top of whatever the conviction brings. The prohibited person charges carry up to 5 years each. Added up across all 6 counts, and Zachary Fuqua, if convicted, is looking at spending the rest of his natural life in a Michigan correctional facility. He is 39 years old. Erica's story is singular, but it exists within a pattern so large and so documented that telling it without naming that pattern would be a failure of the responsibility we owe to cases like hers. The Violence Policy Center tracks femicide, the killing of women by men, in the United States annually. The data is consistent and devastating. The overwhelming majority of women killed by men in this country are killed by someone they know, an intimate partner, Someone they lived with, loved, or were in a relationship with, not a stranger. Someone who knew their kitchen. The National Domestic Violence Hotline reports that more than 10 million people in the United States experience physical violence from an intimate partner every year. 10 million. That is not a niche crisis. That is an epidemic operating inside ordinary homes across every zip code in America. The firearms component of Erica's case connects to research published in peer-reviewed medical journals showing that the presence of a firearm in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of homicide by approximately 5 times compared to situations without one. 5 times. Federal law, the Lautenberg Amendment, prohibits individuals with qualifying prior convictions from possessing firearms. Michigan state law mirrors and expands those prohibitions. Fuqua was prohibited. The weapon was there anyway. This is the gap advocates have been naming for years. The gap between legal prohibition and actual disarmament. Between a court order and the practical reality of whether that weapon has been located and removed. In many jurisdictions, there is no systematic process for ensuring prohibited persons actually surrender their weapons. The burden falls on law enforcement with finite resources. The result, legal protection on paper, physical danger in the home. Children who witness intimate partner are not bystanders. They are primary victims. The CDC identifies childhood exposure to intimate partner violence as an adverse childhood experience, an ACE, with documented, measurable, lifelong effects on physical and mental health. Elevated risks of depression, anxiety, cardiovascular disease, shorter life expectancy, not because of anything they did, because of what happened around them. Erica Sanders' youngest child is 5 years old. That child is now an ACE survivor. If you are in a domestic situation right now, or if you know someone who is, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day, 1-800-799-7233. You can also text START to 888788. Confidential, anonymous. You do not have to have made a decision yet. Just call. If this is resonating with you, please hit the like button right now. 1 second. It tells the platform this story belongs in front of more people. When Centerline lost Erica Sanders, the grief did not stay private. Amia Price gave the community its most devastating statement, raw, unscripted, and aimed directly at the man who had been welcomed into their family. She used the word Godfather. She named the promise. She made sure the world understood that this was not a story of strangers. It was a family, a circle of trust, violated from within. Advocate JoJo Dries brought the systemic lens. She described the trap that keeps people inside dangerous relationships. Not weakness, not passivity, but the very specific and rational fear of what happens when you try to leave. Research is unambiguous. The period surrounding a separation attempt is one of the most dangerous moments for intimate partner violence victims. Victims who are afraid to leave are not wrong. The danger is real. This is why organizations like On the Wings of Angels are not supplementary to the justice system. They are frontline interventions operating in the space courts and law enforcement cannot reach inside the relationship before the final irreversible moment. Prosecutor Lucido's explicit invocation of domestic violence in his official statement signals that institutions in Macomb County understand this case as part of a pattern requiring a systemic response, not just a prosecution, but a reckoning. What justice looks like for Erica is, in one dimension, whatever a Macomb County jury ultimately decides, but in the dimension her children will live inside for decades. Justice is also about what resources reach those 4 kids. What support surrounds them? What this community learns from Erica's story and chooses to do differently. Centerline is 1.4 square miles, 8,500 people. Erica Sanders was one of them. Her children still are. They deserve a community that holds them. Every investigation reaches the point where confirmed facts give way to open questions. This is that point. The weapon. Fuqua was a prohibited person. Background checks exist to screen prohibited persons from legal firearm purchases. So how did he have one? Private sale? Pre-existing possession? Obtained through someone else? The answer matters, because if there is a specific mechanism by which prohibited persons in Michigan continue to obtain weapons, that mechanism needs to be identified and closed. The prior conviction. What were the circumstances of Fuqua's prior weapons offense? Was there any domestic component. Were there prior calls to the Sterling Street address? Were there any protective orders in his history? Court proceedings will surface some of these answers, and the public deserves to know whether this was a man with a documented pattern that the system had already encountered and not adequately addressed. The children. Where are Erica's 4 children now? What resources have been made available to them? This channel will not attempt to identify or expose minors, but these are questions that Child Protective Services, family courts, and community organizations are responsible for answering. These 4 children did not choose any of this. The level of institutional attention directed at their well-being will say something important about what this community values. The social media timeline. The March 14th post is documented. But what else existed across that month-long period the family described as alarming? Private messages? Direct communications to Erica? At what point, if any, did any of those communications cross a threshold that could have enabled intervention? The motive. Prosecutors have not officially disclosed one. Reporting suggests an argument preceded the incident, but officially, no motive stated. Understanding what drove this matters, not to excuse anything because nothing excuses this, but to identify the intervention points that existed and were not used. These questions will be answered in part through the court process. This channel will follow every development as the case moves through Macomb County Circuit Court. Erica deserves a full accounting. Her children deserve the truth. Please share this video one more time before we close. Share it on every platform you have. This story needs to reach people who recognize warning signs in their own lives or the lives of someone they love. Share it for Erica. We started this story with 4 words posted on a Friday afternoon. Going out with a bang. We are ending it with the words that matter, not his, hers. Erica Marie Sanders was 38 years old. A mother of 4, 2 boys and 2 girls who poured everything she had into the lives of her children. She built a real home on Sterling Street. She was a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a woman in the middle of a life that deserved to continue for decades more. She was the kind of person who built family, who created belonging, who pulled people in and made them feel like they were part of something. So much so that her niece's boyfriend became her godfather and her family mourned them both. She did not deserve what happened on March 17th. She deserved to see her youngest child grow up, to watch her oldest step into adulthood, to have all of the ordinary, irreplaceable moments that were taken from her and from the 4 people who needed her most. Zachary Fuqua is in custody. The charges are filed, the courts are moving, but the children are still here, and they will carry March 17th for the rest of their lives. If you or someone you know is in danger right now, please reach out. The National Domestic Hotline, 1-800-799-97233. Text START to 88788. Available 24 hours a day, completely confidential. Your life matters. Your children's lives matter. Please call. To Erica's family, to Amia, to Adams, to everyone who stood in front of cameras while their hearts were breaking and made sure the world knew her name. We see you. We honor your grief. We will not stop saying her name. Her name was Erica. Erica Sanders. Erica Marie Sanders. Say her name. If this documentary moved you, subscribe so you never miss another story. Share this video. Drop her name in the comments. Just her name. So this channel becomes a permanent record that Erica Marie Sanders was here, that she mattered for Erica. Always.